Hello and welcome to our HTML and CSS course. Every time you use the internet, you interact with HTML and CSS code. In this video, you'll start off by learning how HTML is used in the real world. We'll cover everything from semantics and meta tags to making forms and uploading media. Additionally, we will also delve into the use of CSS as part of this course. We'll learn all aspects of HTML and CSS one by one. Maybe you know a little HTML and CSS from another course you took, or maybe you don't know anything at all. In any case, a concise overview will be helpful, so let's go over some fundamental HTML and CSS principles and practices. HTML is an acronym for Hypertext Markup Language. But what exactly does that mean? Hypertext is text that includes links to other text, and markup refers to the way in which HTML tags are used to structure content and give meaning to it. These tags describe the type of content that they enclose, such as headings, paragraphs, lists, images, and more. With CSS, cascading style sheets, you can control the appearance and layout of your HTML content. CSS allows you to set things like font sizes, colors, spacing, and more. By combining HTML and CSS, you can create rich interactive websites that can be viewed in any web browser. So, whether you're new to HTML and CSS or just looking for a refresher, this course will provide you with a solid foundation in these essential technologies. There are many code editors you can use to work with, but the process remains the same across all of them. You can either create an HTML file and open it in the editor, or you can create the file using the editor itself. The same applies to CSS and JavaScript files. Inside this code editor, this basic structure, which we have written over here, is known as boilerplate. By now, you know that HTML describes the content of a web page. But how do you describe the meaning of it? Just like labeling items in a store can help someone understand what they are looking at, it's important to semantically describe the content on a web page. Think of it like labeling the shelves in a library. Just having books on shelves doesn't give enough information about what the books contain. But, by labeling the shelves as science fiction, history, etc., someone can quickly understand the contents of each shelf. Similarly, in HTML, using tags such as h1 to describe a heading, or nav to describe navigation links, helps search engines and assistive technologies like screen readers understand the purpose of the content on a web page. This leads to better accessibility and search engine optimization for the site. Similarly, the UL and OL tags describe lists. However, there are many more semantic HTML elements available to you as a developer. Check out this code for a moment. Inside the body tag you can lay out the website with very semantic tags to describe each of the sections. For a typical HTML page, the structure can be semantically described using the header, main and footer semantic HTML tags. For example, in any website there are three main components that every website has. That is header, where logo and navigation links are written. Next, inside the main tag there will be articles, sections, div tags, and more, which basically the main data of that page. And finally, a footer section contains contact information and social media links. Depending on how web pages are created, the nav element is frequently positioned after the header element, which is used for logos. The main links on your website are then placed into the nav element. Developers often express their links as an unordered list within the nav element. These links on your website are then put into the nav element. Inside the main content of any website we often use article or section, where article is used for represents complete or self-contained composition in a document, page, application, or site that is independently distributable. Think it as a newspaper article, where every news has its own space inside the newspaper. As an article is a self-contained piece of content that can be independently distributed or syndicated. It typically has a start and an end and can make sense on its own. Examples of articles include blog posts, news stories, forum posts, etc. A section in HTML is a thematic grouping of content, typically with a heading, which is used to group together different elements into sections with a distinct purpose to create a document outline and to provide a way to apply styles to elements collectively. Unlike articles, sections don't have to make sense on their own. They're used to structure a document. At the end of this element we have a footer element, which is basically a path to additional links, such as social media links, contact information, and more. It is not necessary that you write code strictly using these elements, but it's a good practice to make your website SEO friendly. Your web page is more accessible because the content is semantically described to add meaning. Now, search engines and accessibility software can easily understand the contents of your well-formed web page. How recently have you utilized a search engine? Most likely during the previous few hours or minutes. Maybe you just wanted to search something up fast, or maybe you required more in-depth knowledge on a subject. How meta tags assist search engines deliver information? Search engine optimization, or SEO, is an important element of building a website. This method entails improving a website's content semantics and delivery in order to increase its ranking in search results. You may be wondering what a search engine performs when it evaluates a web page. When a search engine visits your website, it examines the HTML page as well as the media assets. If it detects a link to another HTML page, it follows that link and continues to do so until it has completed evaluating the entire website. The search engine will rank your website for various search phrases based on the results of the analysis and the content on your website. So while your website may rank first for one search keyword, it may rank quite low for another. Let's talk about something important in web page. What is metadata? Well, it's data but other data, which in this case is about the web page. They are added inside the head tags, and as you know that they are not visible on the website. The meta element has two attributes, name and content. The name attribute specifies the name of the metadata, and the content attribute specifies the value of the metadata. Let's look at some examples of metadata. Over here, description metadata describes the content of the web page. This is often used by search engine as descriptive text in search results. For example, over here name is the type of metadata, and the content is the description which you want to give. Next, metadata is keyword, which is used to provide keywords to search engine, which helps the search engine to get search rankings, and also can be used as spam indicator. However, this metadata is mostly ignored these days, and so I would not recommend to include this metadata. Next we have author metadata, which shows the ownership of the web pages. There is another metadata that is very important, that's viewport. The viewport metadata is important when designing responsive web pages. When a web page is viewed on a phone or tablet, the device will by default attempt to render the web page as if it is being viewed on a desktop. This results in a poor browsing experience for the user. The solution is to define viewport's metadata, so it is important to know about this metadata. Viewport is essential for both the user experience and search engine optimization. This is due to the fact that many search engines now include a website's mobile experience as part of their ranking algorithms. Now that we've covered the basics of HTML, it's time to put our knowledge into action. In the next part of this video, we'll dive into creating our first web page using HTML and CSS. With our newfound understanding of HTML, the creation process will be a breeze. In this second part, we will be exploring some exciting topics such as media elements and also get started with CSS too. Let's look at header first. Over here we have logo, and we have used nav element for nav links in our header. Now, let's look at CSS for this header. Let's start by setting some basic styles for our HTML document. We'll use the root selector and the body element to ensure that everything has zero padding and margin. Moving on to our header element, we'll make it a flex container with the items inside centered and spaced out. We'll use the display property with a value of flex, along with the justify content and align items properties to achieve this. To style our navigation menu, we'll set the unordered list to display as a flex container with no list style, margin, or padding. We'll then add some margin to our list items to space them out. The links inside our navigation menu will have a dark gray color, with no text decoration and an increased font size. To create our hero section, we'll add a section element with a class of hero. The hero section is a prominent part of a web page that typically contains a large image, video, or other attention-grabbing element, along with a heading, subheading, and call to action. We'll use a div element to hold the text and button inside the hero section. To add a background image to our hero section, we'll set the background image property to the URL of the image. We can use a locally stored image or a direct link from the internet. We'll set the background size to cover and the position to center. We'll also set the height to 500px and the display to flex, with justify content and align items used to center the content both horizontally and vertically. The text within the hero section will be centered using the text align property, and the color will be set to white using the color property. For the hero content, we'll create a div with a class of hero content to contain the heading and paragraph. We'll use the background color property to add a background color to the heading and paragraph, with padding of 12 pixels to give some space around the text. We'll use border radius to round the corners of the background color, and set the opacity to 90% to make it slightly transparent. The font size of the heading will be set to 3 rem, and the font size of the paragraph to 1.5 rem. Finally, we'll add some space between the heading and paragraph using margin bottom. To add a call to action button, we'll use the button element with a class of hero button. We'll set the padding to 10 pixels for the top and bottom and 20 pixels for the left and right, with a font size of 1.2 rem. The background color will be white, with black text and no border. We'll use border radius to round the corners of the button, and set the cursor to pointer to indicate that it is clickable. When the user hovers over the button, the background color will change to black and the text color to white, with a smooth transition effect added using the transition property. And that's it. With these styles applied, our header and hero section will look stylish and professional. Before we proceed with the next section of this tutorial, let's take a closer look at media elements in HTML. While we've already used the image element, it's important to understand how video and audio can also be embedded within a web page using HTML. HTML video and audio tags allow us to embed media in a web page, with support for various file types that can be played directly in the user's web browser. For videos, most web browsers support the following file types: MP4, WEBM, and OGG. For audio, the following file types are supported by most web browsers: MP3, WAV, and OGG. To use the video tag, we start with the video tag itself, and then add a source element. It's important to note that the source element has no closing tag. Within the source element, we add 2 attributes, src, also known as source, and type. In the src attribute, we add the address of the video file, and in the type attribute, we specify the format of the video using the MIME type, such as video/MP4. The video tag also offers various attributes that can be used to customize the video player, such as width and height, and the ability to enable player controls like pause and volume buttons, using the controls attribute. There are additional attributes available to further customize the video player. Similarly, the audio tag can be used to embed audio within a web page. Just like the video tag, we add a source element and specify the format using the type attribute, such as audio/OGG. Multiple source elements can be added to accommodate for different browser support of file types. Overall, understanding how to use media elements in HTML is essential for creating dynamic and engaging web pages. Let's look at an example of the code and its output on web page. In both examples, the text your browser does not support will be displayed if the browser does not support the video or audio tag. In the next part of our tutorial, we will focus on the main section of our website and explore more topics. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Online booking is a convenient way to book things, whether it's tickets or accommodation. To make the process easier for their customers by adding a table booking system to their website. To achieve this, an HTML form with radio buttons is an ideal solution. The form needs to allow customers to select the table size and location. This is done by creating two field set elements, one for table size and one for location. Radio buttons are used to provide limited options and set up groups where only one option can be selected. The three different table sizes, 2-person, 4-person, and 6-person tables are added using three input elements with the type attribute set to radio and the value attribute set to the corresponding size. To ensure the correct grouping, the name attribute is set to match the ID attribute of the field set element. The checked attribute is added to the 4-person table input element to set it as the default option. For the table location, two input elements with the type attribute set to radio are added, one for indoors and one for outdoors. The name attribute is set to match the ID attribute of the second field set element, and the checked attribute is added to the indoor option to set it as the default. To improve the user experience on mobile devices, the input elements and text are grouped using the label element. This allows the user to select the option by clicking on the text rather than the small button element. Now let's create cards for our menu, and to create a menu card in our website, over here we have a section with the ID menu. Inside this section, we have an H2 heading with the text Our Menu. This heading serves as the title for the menu section, and it's written using the H2 element in HTML. Next, we have a div with the class menu container. This div contains all the menu items we want to display. Each menu item is wrapped in a div with the class menu item. We start with an image of the appetizers plate, with the alt attribute set to appetizers. This is important for accessibility purposes, as it provides an alternative text description of the image for users who may not be able to see it. The image is followed by a div with the class menu item info. This div contains the name, description, and price of each appetizer. Each appetizer is represented by a list item with a span for the name and another span for the price. All of the menu items are contained within an unordered list, which is represented by the ol element in HTML. And that's how you can create a menu section for a website using HTML and CSS. By following this example, you can customize the menu items to fit your restaurant's offerings and style. Now, we just have to copy this few more time. Check this out, we have our menu cards ready. If you want to see its CSS, then just pause the video and go through. As you can see, this code includes a section with a container for our About Us information. Within the container, we have a heading that reads About Us, and a row with two columns, one for an image and one for text. The image column features a picture of a background. This could be changed to any image of your choice. And the text column features a paragraph of lorem ipsum text. This is placeholder text that you would replace with your own information about your website or business. Now, let's take a closer look at the code and how we can customize it. For example, to change the image, you would replace the URL in the src attribute with the URL for your own image. And to change the text, you would simply replace the lorem ipsum text with your own About Us information. So there you have it. That's the HTML code for an About Us section, and how you can customize it for your own website. Forms are an important aspect of web development. They allow users to input data, which is then used for various purposes, such as creating an account or placing an order. However, it's crucial to ensure that the user input is valid and meets the required standards. For example, let's say you are building a fitness app that tracks user progress. If a user accidentally enters the wrong weight or height, the app will give them inaccurate results, leading to a bad user experience. To avoid this, there are two methods of form validation: client-side validation and server-side validation. Client-side validation checks for errors in real time, as soon as the user types in the data. This is done using JavaScript or the web browser, which instantly provides feedback to the user. For example, you can use the number input type to ensure that users only enter numerical values for their weight and height. If they enter a non-numeric value, the web browser will display an error message telling them that the input is invalid. On the other hand, server-side validation checks for errors after the data has been submitted to the server. This is a more secure method because it prevents malicious users from submitting invalid data to the server. For example, you can check if the user's weight and height fall within a valid range or if they have entered a realistic date for their workout log. If the data doesn't meet the required standards, the server will reject it and send an error message to the user. Most websites use both client-side and server-side validation to ensure data integrity and provide a good user experience. Form validation is a crucial part of web development that helps to ensure the accuracy and reliability of user input. Now let's look at this code. We have a form element that wraps the entire form. Inside the form, we have 4 input fields and a submit button. The first input is for the username, and we have used the label element to provide a label for this input. We have also set the for attribute of the label to match the ID attribute of the input, which creates a link between the label and the input. We have done the same for the other inputs, which are for the user's email, password, and password confirmation. To make sure that the user enters valid data into these inputs, we have used the required attribute, which ensures that the user must fill in the input before submitting the form. We have also set the type attribute of the email input to email, which will validate that the user enters a valid email address. And there you have it, a simple but effective sign-up form using HTML and CSS. You can use this code as a starting point for your own form and customize it to match your own design. Don't forget to add some JavaScript or server-side code to handle the form submission and create a new user in your database. Let's add a contact form using the knowledge we gain over here. Over here we have Contact Us section, which includes a container with a heading that reads Contact Us, and a form for users to submit their name, email, and message. The form includes fields for name, email, and message, and a button to submit the form. In the footer, we have a container with 3 sections: contact information, social media links, and an address. The contact information includes an email address and phone number. The social media links include icons for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And the address section includes the restaurant's address. At the bottom of the footer, we have a copyright notice. For this website, this is basic CSS which we have used over here. And finally, our website looks something like this. But don't stop there. It's time for you to put your skills to the test and build your very own basic website. We hope this HTML course has been both helpful and easy to follow. If you found it valuable, please consider supporting our channel by subscribing and sharing with others. We look forward to bringing you more informative content in our next video. Thanks for watching.